Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast. Special edition. We're going to do like a mini series over the next couple of weeks. It's called Pub Talk. We're going to pick out. We've already picked out a couple of big topics, key topics in the game as such, not involving necessarily the teams for 2025 or 2024. Sort of going a bit deeper into the competition and picking a few thoughts and a bit of heated debate, bit of discussions, picking our brains as well. Hopefully we might be able to solve a few things. Maybe Peter Valandis might listen into one of the podcasts and go, oh, yeah, those boys, they're on the money, and we might have a trip to NRL headquarters after this. But hopefully you guys like it. If you do, over the next couple of weeks and the ratings that are there and the views and the interactions, make sure you like it and stuff. Who knows, might be able to bring a few more to you throughout next year and this sort of more style sort of podcast as well. So I've got Jesse, I've got Jake, and I've got Trav along for me here. Basically, let's just get started. So it's going to be like a sort of a round table sort of thing where we just basically all have our points. We all come in whenever we feel like it and basically go from there. So tonight's one is on the draw and expansion. So we're going to have a bit of an open discussion around both. I guess the first one we'll start on is the draw side of things. There's been a lot of discussion at the moment. When we do speak about expansion later on, that comes into a lot. But at the moment, even just the draw feeling like it feels like the last probably 2 years, especially with so many injuries to key players and teams feeling like they're limping to finals and things like that, that the draws may be too long. We're just dragging the season out way too long than it needs to be. It's impacting the product in a way. Let's pick our brains. Let's get our thoughts. Trav, I'll throw to you first. What are your thoughts around that sort of statement when people say the draw is too long?
I say, suck it up. I like the length of the draw. I reckon it's good. I actually think, to be honest, it could even go even further. And I would really like it to go a little bit further. And I mean, ideally, I'd love it if we could play each other twice, but I think that's quite difficult with 17 teams. It means we'd have to go out to 33 rounds or 34 rounds, which I suppose is only 8 more rounds than what they're on now. But yeah, I think suck it up. I like that. I think it could go further. Yeah, that's quickly my opinion.
Jesse, what are your thoughts around it?
I agree, to be honest. Like, I don't like the fact they don't play each other twice. It's a pretty simplistic viewpoint, really. I'm coming at it just from, every other sport ever, when you have a regular minor season table where you don't play each other twice. I just find it really unbalanced, and you can skew it so far. Like, I understand you got to keep it competitive. You got to keep the balance there. You got Origin, you got buys to contend with, and you've got so much to do. So I was digging into a little bit of the buy, the draw itself and how complicated it would actually be to set a draw. Because I'm thinking about it, I'm like, just play each other twice. And then you start actually looking into it, and I'm like, bloody hell, you know what? This would be a nightmare of a job for anyone who actually has to set the draw. But sort of agree with Trav's point. It could go longer. Admittedly, they complain about the workload pretty quick every time it comes up, and they can look forward to the season and the draw that they've got ahead. I don't know. I feel like it is tricky, but you have to play each other twice. It's just such a simple thing, but I'm probably very wrong. There's probably people out there listening going, "You're a fool. It can't be done." So this is my point.
Well, but it can be done. It
can be done. Of course, everyone else does it.
I think I don't see how it can be so difficult. Just play everyone once and then just reverse it and play everyone the second time. Like, it can be done.
Yeah,
it's just whether our game and the athletes can withstand it. It'd be interesting to see if that could happen. I think you could go around it in heaps of different ways. You could instead of doing expansion clubs, you could add extra players to the list so that you can get through it and make it like that. I actually think to be honest, I think you need to go, the competition needs to go one of two ways. It either makes everyone play to each other twice, or play everyone once and then expand the finals to like best of 3 series or something like that, or do something like that that pushes the games out so that the product is longer still. That way, then it becomes more of an even comp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it feels like I think you hit the nail on the head there, Trav. It's either got to go one way or the other. We either play everyone twice. The worry playing everyone twice is that I feel like it already is impacting the rep scene quite a lot in terms of the internationals. That will just almost wipe the internationals out, in my opinion, because there's no way players and clubs will allow their players to play more games. I feel like more than a 34-week competition plus the 4 weeks of finals or whatever it ends up being. Then you go into an international scene. I think it will severely deplete a lot of teams, and those island nations that are starting to rise, I think would get really, really impacted by that because they're some of their top line stars. Their clubs would just go, sorry, but we can't risk this, and you need your break. So it's a weird one, definitely. Jake, where are you? Where are you sitting on the side of the fence here? Do you think the draw side needs to either shorten or widen?
No, I'm with Trav. I actually think it should go longer. I think every team should play each other twice. And the main reason I sort of say that is at the end of the game, each week they're only playing that 80 minutes. And it comes down to what they do in the middle of the week that becomes the issue, not necessarily the game itself. They play a total of 80 minutes every week. Yeah, I understand that. But then it becomes load management. How hard are they training every week? And I get that you should be training hard, but are they resting enough? Can they be rested more to make that go for longer? When you're mid-season, do you need to be training as hard as you were at the start of the season? Not necessarily. Like it becomes that, are you managing your loads correctly all the way through? And that becomes, then your trainers and stuff like that. But the other way, Trav sort of said it, and I fully agree with this, if I'm expanding the size of the squads you can have so that there is more depth that you can actually bring up. And you're not always necessarily naming your best side. You might be naming a side that you think might be able to get through a round and resting somebody in a week or something like that, like increasing the actual squad sizes that there are. That's the way I'd kind of go about it personally. But yeah, I definitely think that everyone could play each other twice. I just think that it needs to be maybe reduced. Needs to be some sort of reduced load in the middle of like their training and how they train around the game, not necessarily the game itself.
Extend the bench.
Yep.
100%. Allow more substitutions. Anything. Yep. There's heaps of different ways you could do it.
That's it.
The substitution thing makes no sense to me. Just scrap the whole substitution thing entirely and just let them fucking roll back and forth. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get that part of it. And then that would then certainly suit the resting periods and all of those sorts of things. You're talking load management, which is a big thing that's happening in the States at the moment too, where particularly in the NBA, where they're supposed to be playing 82 games. Now that's a lot, right?
That's a lot. That's tons.
And your superstars are playing 82 games in 40 minutes or 30 odd minutes to 40 minutes. And basketball is short sprints constantly over and over and over again. So like, that's a lot of game time. So they do load management and people are cracking it about it and hate it. I think our game's a bit different in terms of the load management. I think we could talk more around the physical exertion that our players have to deal with to be able to have load management, which would suffice. There's certainly ways to get around this and do and go it. I don't think anyone would expect every player or a bulk amount of players to play 34 games. I would expect them to play 28 to 30 if you were going to, and through that, you talk around the international period, Joel. Well, then just play it as the World Cup every 4 years. It's just once every 4 years, and that's all you do. And don't have the international series every year so that your product for the NRL is better. More fairer. And there's other things that we're going to talk about in future podcasts around making that more fairer. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. So it's either you make everyone play twice, or you only play once and you extend the period out and do something different.
But there's not a lot of competitions they have to concede with too. Like you look at the Premier League, 20 teams, 38 regular games in a season, plus FA Cup, plus, Capital Cup, plus the internationals that you get to, plus the Champions League, plus the Europa, plus all these other games. Man, there's competitions all season with a 38-week. They play midweek games. They'll
Friendlies.
play 2, maybe 3 times in 9 days. You know what I mean? And that's 90-minute games
And
with
they're
extra
playing.
time. And they're playing. And they've got a bench. They rotate, but they don't have unlimited subs. They can't just rest a guy for 20 minutes. Like, he's off and he's off. So, like, there's a lot there. Like, these guys, and it's, okay, fair enough. It may not be as physical, button heads as the NRL is in the Premier League or any other soccer code in general, but that's a lot, man. Like they're hard games. Like you can't back up 2 games
constant
back
on
to
off,
back.
constant
Yeah.
on off sprinting too. Like you're not necessarily stopping at any point. Like the ball can come at you at any time, on or off the ball. Like
Yeah, and you got to keep moving. Like you have to keep moving. You cannot be still. You don't get a break. You don't get a rest when there's a penalty or a conversion. Like as soon as you're going, you have to be moving. So there is different load management, but there are other sports out there that play way more games. And people complain about it all the time, but it's not going to stop them. Like they're too big of a game to go and take 5-6 games off the season and cram a random team in there. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of whinging, to be fair. You're athletes. You get paid big bucks. Play an extra game. Like
100%. You
Yeah.
get paid enough, and you're playing a game for a job.
Yeah.
Your working is keeping fit and learning strategies. Like that's fantastic. I think most people wish that they could be doing that for that money.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. To be devil's advocate a bit here and change it up and not have everyone agree, let me go on to the other side of the fence here, because I feel like if we have got, like, let's say it's a 34-week competition, I feel like there's going to be at least 6 games there where they're going to be some pretty average sort of looking teams when we count into whether it's injuries or resting players and things like that. And there's going to be some pretty average games getting played throughout that sort of period. We already have that at the moment when it's around that origin time, and basically it's reserve grade up against reserve grade, which I actually do enjoy watching those games, because you get to see some of these players who are up-and-coming players. They get their chance. They get to get contracts. We saw Jake Iongi for Penrith get his chance, and then Paris sign him basically the week after that he made that debut. So it can work really well for players. The way I sort of look at it, I feel like if we go down that path of just bursting everyone once, and then we expand, like personally for me, I'd get rid of the preseason comp. I hate it. I don't think there's any need for it in the modern day to have a preseason comp, because how hard they're training and what they're doing in the preseason. A little preseason comp where they're basically taking the piss and they're playing their stars for 40, 50 minutes, for mine, does nothing. Rather than train for an extra 2-week block, if that's what it's going to take for them to hit the ground running. We don't need the preseason comps and the risks involved with preseason. We've seen a few teams like the Dolphins last year got impacted by it, losing a key forward early in the year during that preseason sort of mold. So I don't think we need that preseason to start with. I'd stop the competition altogether for a 4-week period and have a rep sort of month, and not just the international scene. I'd actually have the state of origin in there as well. I'd have just this whole month of representative football, have your Tongans versus Samoa, your PNG versus Fiji, all that sort of stuff. You obviously couldn't have the Australian team in there because they would be playing Origin, so they just naturally couldn't get there. So you have your Kiwis as well, and that also makes sure people are choosing who they play for, and that's who they play for. So like for Samoa, for instance, LOI has to choose. He's got to choose the Blues or he chooses Samoa. And that can really strengthen the game, I feel like, in the international scene. And then once that's all completed and the players have finished, they're focused back on their energy, all in on the club scene, then you've got that run home of, say, it's 8 games or something. You get into the finals. You have at the moment your stock standard top 8 sort of thing, and how they do it at the moment. That's sort of how I would personally look at it and like to see how it goes. We're still getting roughly the same sort of amounts of football that we're getting now. We're just changing up a little bit and doing a bit more of a scene on the international, because I think, Trav, if we go just the World Cup and that's it, the rep scene will die. But we need to make sure we're putting a lot more into the rep side of things, the internationals, than we currently are doing, because even at the moment, like this current one model we've got, we don't really know what's happening that much. It sort of all just feels like it's done like a spur of the moment type thing, and off you go. It's not really much thought and effort put into it. Where if we give it the lights it deserves and the sole focus and energy, obviously, like you'd have your origin on the Friday night or something. That's your key there, and then the internationals follow on the Saturday and Sunday, and then that works in. And then the 4th week is the finals for all the international stuff. Jesse.
I had a question. Sorry. Could you do it similar to the way they do it in like in the different football, whatever competitions, where you have like an international break. So you have players who get picked for international teams. They go into an international break, and then all other teams have a break for that week. So that could help us to extend out the competition, while also letting, obviously, the players who are in those international teams might get rested the week after, same thing as they sort of do for Origin kind of thing. But it allows that competition to extend, but also gives some people more breaks. And it kind of would, if you were doing 2 games, if you're versing each team twice, that would kind of fix up where buys are. So every team would get a buy at the same time, because it fixes both issues at once. Do you think that could work?
It allows them also that 4-week window. You could have like a mini preseason again for the players that aren't playing anything. And to be honest, there wouldn't be many, because once you take into account all the rep teams that would be playing, that I reckon squads, you'd be lucky to have 8 or so, sort of 10 players left over from your squad of sort of 30 once everyone gets chosen. Maybe some squads might be unlucky and not get too many and have like a 20 or something, but that'd be very rare. And then have like a little mini preseason again. So get yourselves ready to go again for that finals push and check where you are on the ladder and basically go from there. I don't know. I just feel like ramping it up in terms of, and that means also the lesser games means it's the pressure's on to get those 2 points a bit more, where you might have a player that's sort of, oh yeah, he could play. And we heard it so much this year. Oh no, he was good to go. We just wanted to hold him back 1 week just to make sure, sort of thing. You'd go, oh no, let's go and get those 2 points. Let's go make sure we don't take the Tigers lightly, for instance, and let's just go out and get those 2 points and put on a show and put on some points, because this 2 points means something at the moment. Like I feel like if you expand the comp too much, you might be able to get those games where they're just the teams play it a bit and they go, oh, rest them. It's all good. Give them that extra week and things like that. So, and I think that can impact the quality of the product.
Hey, just to clarify, like you've come up with some really good points, Joel, but what do you actually want? Do you want it to be longer, shorter, or stay? You want it to be shorter. So one game, one play everyone once with a mid-year 4-week break. Yeah, no, I'm all over that. I love that. And what I would like to, I'd extend that even further and go. I'd even extend the finals into like best of 3 series or something like that. Like I said before, so that way, then you've literally got to turn up for 3 games. It's not just one off. It's not just a 1 game and whoever had the least injuries, or we're human. We don't turn up every day and every time. And we can't play perfectly and do the perfect thing every single time. It now means that you've got to be the best of and do the most. So, I'm all over that. I love that. What a great idea.
Even something like in the finals, like if you did, because obviously you have like your prelims, semis, and then, all into that. You could do it as different amounts of games for like the higher up you go as well. Like you could do, maybe not a best of 7 like they do in NBA, but like, I don't know, a best of 5 for the actual grand final. That, I don't know, maybe does that ruin the? Does that ruin the? That's a bit much. That's a bit much. I'll put my it's a bit much. Even
a best of 3 for the grand final would be more than enough.
But even a best of 3, does that sort of take away from the spectacle of like it's a one and done, like you have one shot?
Yeah, but the point, it does. It depends what you like. I mean, it depends whether you want to do that. The thing is, like, how often have we spoken about grand finals and, in any sort of sport when it is one and done. Yeah, but
grand final's got to be 1. Yeah, that's it.
I don't.
Got to do it.
I don't agree.
So maybe leading into this, maybe leading into the grand final, you do your best of 3s to get in, because that means that you like, it kind of gives that, some teams, like even let's take for example 2024 Bulldogs versus Manly. I think either team could have won that on their day, and it's like that, like gives that opportunity of who realistically would have won that if they went at best of 3. Like it might have been a bit of a different result, and then that might have affected things going into the finals. Then when you get to that final game, that's it.
Sorry, boys. Someone just let off freaking fireworks in the background.
I couldn't hear
right outside my house.
Yeah, I didn't hear it. I just heard you.
Just got my kid in a different bed, and I'm like, oh no, that was huge. I'm just going to go back a little bit. I don't really like the idea, Joel, to be honest with you. Play each other once and then have a massive international break. I hate it. I hate international breaks, especially for friendlies. They just freaking bore me to tears. I'm like, oh God, just put the regular season back on. I want some proper footy again. Same as football, same as soccer, same as everything. I feel like the international break comes around and I'm just like, oh crap, here we go again. Players just say all of a sudden they're injured. No one really cares too much. It's like you kind of get that, and it's like I don't know. It speaks a bit volumes about the international scene in general. I don't know. I personally am not super interested in it. Obviously, there are many people that are, but me as an individual, I don't watch them. I don't really. I see the results. I see, oh yeah, they did well. That's cool. Did anyone get injured? That's all I'm looking at. Did anyone get hurt for their own teams? And that's kind of as far as I'll go with it. But you're saying, so you play everybody once. Okay. Who gets the home and away game out of those?
So
You
it
just
actually
run a
expands for me.
2-year, just run a 2-year draw.
Oh no,
So
I'd
yeah.
actually go
Alternate years. So 2024, you have the home team, and then the next year, you're the
Too
away
much
team.
changes. Too much changes in a side to go, oh, you got an advantage next year. Okay, the Roosters, for example. Cool. We get the shit run last year
do it after.
with the better team, and now, oh, okay, cool.
But
No
that's
worries, this team's no good.
the nature of salary cap competitions. What is it that?
No, this is
What's that
international.
point?
So the window for me, what I would do for the international game, I'd have 2 windows a year. So I'd have that in the middle of the year, 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it wants to be, and have the first round as such when they do these blocks where it's 3 or 4 teams per block. And then after, where they normally do at the end of the year, that's where they sort of play round 2, and then the finals are in that block. So they play each other twice. Every team will end up playing each other twice, because the way I see it, that game against like Tonga or New Zealand or Tonga versus Samoa, you want to capitalize on that. You want that to be played at least twice a year, because when I went back and watched that for the one that was just previously played, that quality and that atmosphere, that was next level. That was right up there in terms of, for them anyway, what we get to enjoy. That's Origin. That's our passion. That's our pride. That's what we get behind so much. And you saw the colors and you saw the people get behind it. The game needs to show that now, because we're getting more and more Islanders playing the game. Like that figure's rising every year. We need to make sure we're capitalizing on that. That's the growth of the game. That's where it's shining. And I just feel like personally, I'd be putting more eggs into those baskets, and I'd almost do it straight away. I'd get straight onto it and just hit it right now while there's a momentum there, while we're on top of rugby as well, because obviously a lot of Pacific Islanders love that game. It seems to be more and more of them like to come over and play league at the moment. Take advantage of that. We're getting more and more sevens players coming over to play our game as well. Give them some of the internationals. Give them more of that, because that's what they love to play. That's why they go to those codes, because they get to play those internationals and represent their country. One thing that I feel like rugby league's lacking at the moment is that passion and that pride, because they only get it for 2-3 weeks, and that's it at the end of the year. It doesn't feel like enough for mine.
Do you reckon they could handle the financial side of things, though? Basically putting on pause for a month?
I
think
you be
you
making
could,
money still off your TV deals and your
because you got
your leagues?
Origin.
Yep.
You got Origin
Origin
going
will
through.
be at the same time.
Yeah.
For one
You
of
got
those
Origin-
breaks that you're talking.
Yeah, the mid-year one. So you could still have Origin the mid-year. I don't think Origin should be end of year ever again. That was
No.
I know that was COVID times, but that was just
You switch
no.
off so hard at the end
Yeah.
too. It's like you come back around at the end of the season, you're like, oh, now we've got Origin.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm basically done.
I love that. I loved the Origin at the end of the year. I'm an advocate for put the Origin at the end of the year. But
The other thing
in your context, though, in your context with your ideas, I actually like the idea of a 4-week break and put Origin in there. But if you weren't to do that, I'm an advocate for Origin at the end of the season.
So would you go Origin 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, and that's it? Like
If
of
you
it?
had that 4-week
Bang
block,
it
I
out.
would, and then give them a week
Yeah.
off. Yep.
Yeah.
That would work.
4th week's off, and then they go back into they have that full week off, then they go back into season training and get into that. I'd actually, at the end of the year as well, just to go a bit more into my idea I had penciled down, Peter, just give us that call after you listen to this as well. That first week of finals, I'd actually, and this is more of a when the game expands, which we'll get into a little bit down the track of this chat, but when it gets to that sort of 20 team, I'd open it up to a top 10 system. That first week of finals, I'd have 7th versus 10th, 8th versus 9th. And I'd also throw in there, because it actually rated very, very well, I'd have a wooden spoon battle each and every year. So the bottom 2 teams, that after the last round, they come back and play one more game, and it's for literally a wooden spoon battle. And there has to be, and this is another thing we'll talk about in a later episode, some kind of actual punishment in terms of something that they get dealt by getting last place. So it actually means a hell of a lot more than just getting a wooden spoon, which clearly doesn't mean much.
What happens if the bottom? What happens if the bottom team's got 1-15 and the second last team was 4-12, but they're still playing for a wooden spoon?
So you can come in second last.
Nah, that's crap. That's rubbish. The wooden spoon is deserved to the only reason why it worked out this year was because Para and the Tigers had the same points that were there when they were playing. The winner was that's the only reason why it worked. Every other year, if you've got the worst amount of points, you deserve the freaking wooden spoon because you're the worst team. Like, don't give it to the second. Don't give it to the second bottom team who just randomly doesn't turn up on that last game of the year because they know they're playing for a wooden spoon and they get that's crap.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on the fence on this one. I feel like I'm on the fence because I love the idea of the spectacle. Like I love the idea from Joel that it will be a spectacle and it would be fun. But at the same time, I do agree with Trav that I just think it is so unfair. Like, what are those extra 3 weeks that you fought for, that those boys fought for on the field? What did they count for? Nothing. Like, I don't know. I think that's a little harsh, but I do think that it would also be very, very, very fun to watch a spoon bowl every year.
Let's continue to celebrate the terribleness of two teams for at the end of the Hey,
it would generate
another game.
We're talking about money in the game. It would generate more and more. I'm telling you right
now. What's your idea of a punishment though? That's the question. That's the important thing.
That's a later episode. That's something we'll get to, Jake. We'll look at maybe something in next week. It's something where, because the weird thing is the punishment, you couldn't punish them straight away. I think, maybe salary cap, but then they're literally just going to come last again next year. You couldn't do that to them. So it's tough because you want to pick them up and help them sort of thing. But at the same time, you want to be like, you shit, like you've got to cop something to that. You're not going to get celebrated. And it just feels like there should be something else happening, because the next sort of point in terms of this discussion, I feel like, is minor premiers for me at the moment in this game. And we've spoken about sort of what we would do in terms of how long you'd play for. And that, to me, it's the end goal. That team is the best team, whether it's for what we spoke about was 16 weeks or it's going to be 32 weeks, whatever the comp would be for our ideal sake. There's a team that's on top of the ladder, like there was this year with the Melbourne Storm, who for mine was clearly the best team in the competition for the year. Like they were probably light years ahead of most. Yet, what do they get to celebrate? I think at the moment you get 100 grand for getting the mining premiership in as a team, and that's basically it. So I think there needs to be more reward for winning the competition in terms of the regular season. I don't think we celebrate that enough, because that's at the moment a 24-week competition. That is a long time in our game, and to battle through injuries, and it really shows you the best squads. I think a lot of the time the ones that have actually covered all their positions, and the Storm have done that very, very well this year, and they should be rewarded more. That's my personal opinion anyway. I feel like we should be putting more into the prize for minor premiership.
Well, if you look at like we were talking about before, like EPL, it's first past the post for them. If you finish like with the most amount of points, you win the entire comp. Now I know that wouldn't work in that context, because that just makes for a boring end of the year. Like that's just, well, you know who's going to win, and that's a bit, and we don't have relegation and promotion, so it's a bit pointless for us. But at the same time, like that's how important it is for them to finish at the top. So I'm a bit like, I agree. It definitely needs to be some sort of improved, I don't know, maybe like a big donation. It's such a difficult thing of like what it would even be, but you're definitely right. They definitely need to be rewarded for that, because it is such an achievement.
Play 38 games in a season. You bloody want to win that minor, I tell you, man. 25 games. Oh, cool. No worries. We'll just get into, the next season. It's not long enough to be, worth as much as is, plus the money involved. But I don't know. I'd like to see a different side of it. And it's like, okay, you win the minor, you get the first draft pick.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. But then you're also implementing draft picks, which I would love to see. So, there's two.
That's another conversation. Let's not go there.
That's a whole different thing. That's a whole different thing. But like that's that's where you kind of have to go. And I think, extending the length of the season, it makes the minor worth more because you freaking won it. Like, you won it after a slog of a season. Just makes it more valuable. And I think just doing that in itself would make it worth more. But again, like, we don't have a relegation. So the Wooden Spooners can continue to just be shit every year and nothing really comes of it. And you can't punish them salary-wise because, again, you're just feeding that fire of them being rubbish. So it's like you're just punishing them for being bad and you're giving them no chance to get better. So you couldn't do that either. You need a relegation system. Like, there has to be a way. There's junior teams, or even, I don't know what's going on in the second division side of things compared to where the NRL is. There's got to be teams that are flying there, like absolutely flying, exceeding their levels that could do with a promotion, and that would bring so much money into those other clubs too because you're getting promoted. And then you put the team like the Tigers, who have been shit for the last 3 years. Again, this season could be an entirely different story. They look good, or longer, but spoon. They're not at the level. Like, they're not competing at the same level. They need to go to a level they can compete with, get better, develop, come back. Like it happens in every other team or every other code that has a relegation system. Most of the time, you see them come back up because there is quality there for them. They've just, got to put their freaking boots back on. But we don't have that. So they kind of just cop a battering every season and nothing really comes of it. So,
yeah,
I'd love to see a promotion relegation system. I really do. I think it needs to happen, but it's such a difficult thing to implement with the way that our systems work and the way that the money works in this game. Like, it just won't. It's such a difficult thing to sort of make happen. But I was just saying how you were talking about how you didn't know what was going on with like the lower division. It's two separate comps as well. That would make it a bit harder unless you did like for the promotion side. For the promotion side of things, you either did a national second grade, or you did like at the end of both of their competitions, they do a playoff for who gets to go up or something like that, like a best of 3 games or something like that for who gets to go up. That'd be a pretty watched thing because you'd have either it's a team that's been relegated the year before and it's a team that has a big supporter base, or it's a team that it might be exciting and everyone's kind of like, oh wow, that might be really good to get to see them sort of go up.
Yeah, do something like a knockout cup, like an FA Cup series type thing, where the winner of that is the team that gets promoted. And then the last team, they just drop back. But I suppose then you've got to factor in another team in some area when you've got one team from another area going in, and then you've got a team from another state coming up and back down into a different comp. So it's tricky. Like, I don't know. It'd be very hard to do without an actual second division of the NRL, like NRL 2 or whatever. But, they want to talk expansion. Like, you need to add a whole nother league.
Yeah.
I don't think you've really got the facility for it.
Your team was the one I spoke about, obviously, the Melbourne Storm this year, and their minor premiers. And then obviously losing the grand final, you end up just feeling like a bit of a punch to the guts. And it's been such a good year, a great year, to be honest with you. And just to not get almost anything for the whole season, it just leaves a bit of a sour taste because, look, Penrith obviously do what they do very well. And they're not going to sit here and bag Penrith. Credit to them. They've won the comp now 4 years in a row. They clearly know what they're doing. But it's starting to get to that point where it's very convenient, some of their players, their injuries and how long they're out for. You feel like, in a way, if there's more for the price for minor premiers, would they then push that a bit more and go, oh, actually, you know what, get back, because we wouldn't mind that 400,000 or 500,000 or whatever it's going to be. We wouldn't mind a bit more extra.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and particularly in the NRL where money is reasonably tight and it's not a high-paying league, and the salary cap's not as high. I think to be able to dish out a significant chunk of money to the minor premiers would be really good for the I actually think it sucks, to be honest, that the minor premiers pretty much get nothing but a high five and say, awesome, now here's your first round of home. Here's your first final at home. And literally that's all it is. And if you don't turn up, then you lose that right again. So I think it really does need to be looked at in terms of how they manage that. You made a good point. Like, you're going to play in some of the conspiracy theories of Penrith and what they do in terms of of their injuries and restings, and the Cleary just wanted to have a holiday with his missus over in England. Isn't that was what you were trying to refer to this year? Yeah, but
there's a few things out there.
It's pub talk, so we can put it out there now, can't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I've said it in a couple of podcasts that you and I have done, Joel, by ourselves. I think we even spoke about it in the team review. The team review. That the minor premium does need to have something better. However, Jesse's enlightened me on a point that I think that I didn't even think about, was that dependent on the length of the season. So if they were to change it and make it longer, 100% they need to be figuring out a way to make those dollars get paid, because that really is a battle then, isn't it? You've literally paid everyone twice. You know, you've managed your injuries, you've managed the travel home and away, all sorts of things, right? You've done that. If they made it 16 or whatever it is, and everyone played once, I don't think you need to bother, because it's only once. It's, you know, it's just now you've done the work. Now go and win. Now go and win your finals. I think that would. So if it was an earlier, less amount, I think is a different story. But the way it is now, I think they need to fund or reward the minor premiers much better, and particularly if they were to, you know, Peter was listening and does go and make the change. Definitely needs to make something bigger, and the money's there. Like I'm not going to lie, I saw a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I think. I can't remember when I saw it, but it was, I think it was actually during the cricket test, and there was a photo about revenue sharing. And we all talked about it, because I think I posted in a group, and we all talked about it, that the NRL does a pretty good job with the revenue sharing, but it was still only at 41%. So there's still 59% of money that doesn't go anywhere near the NRL players or their clubs. So there's money there. There's money there. It can be done.
Yeah. There's definitely money there. That's the crazy thing. So even though, like, I even actually think, even if it's a 16-week competition and you just play everyone once, that's still an achievement. You've gone through every team and you are the best team in the competition. Like, I still think that should be rewarded. And it sort of goes back to what Jake said a bit earlier, and it sort of stands out to me. I guess it's the Australian way to have finals. Like, we're just sort of become accustomed to it. And like Jake said, the boring part, where soccer fans, that last few weeks where you've got like your Man City, if they're crowned champions a few weeks in advance, there's still like a bit of that aura, like, oh, we want to beat the champs type thing. There's still build-ups to it. They get to celebrate it. Like, it's a big thing over there in England. That's obviously because they've become accustomed to that for so long now, where our way of doing things, I guess, in sport, we love finals, we love the knockouts, and we love that sort of style of sport, I guess, in a way. It's sort of like, do we need to change the way we think and not think, okay, a minor premier, if they've secured it with 3 or 4 weeks to go, well, instead of going, oh, this is going to be boring the next few weeks, actually celebrate that and go, goodness me, they've done a bloody good job. Like, this is a very well-constructed team. Like, I think the Storm were 4 points ahead, I think, this year. So they secured it 2 weeks in advance. So instead of saying, oh, the last 2 weeks, oh, how boring, like, let's like celebrate that, go, oh, let's go out there and actually show them what we've got for next year moving forward. I just feel like maybe we've got to change our ways as Australians about how we look at sport, maybe. Jesse, I know you follow a lot of sport out there. Is that Australia way? Is it sort of a thing of the past in a way, or do you sort of know what I'm saying with that?
Oh, 100%, man. 100%. I know what you're saying, because I don't like the whole point of, like, you win the minor, but so what? Like, you string 4 games together, well done, and now you're the champion of the league. Like, I hate that for a sport. I really do. I just think it devalues all the hard work that someone can do over an entire season. Going to a shorter season is going to put a lot more emphasis on the finals, because, like Jake said, you're basically getting through this. Let's get to finals where we can be crowned the champions. But again, like, I'll go back to the Premier League again. I'm probably sorry for a lot of, the reference to it all, but it's such a massive thing, and you're still playing for a lot. Like, we don't have the same setup as those sort of setups do anyway. We just don't have the relegation. We don't have more divisions. But okay, fair enough. City will win the league by, X amount of points. Probably not this season, but you're still playing for Champions League, top 4. Then you got the top 6, you know, 5th and 6th. You're still playing for European competitions. Then you got the bottom 3 playing for relegation. So like there's things in that league set up still to play for, even without not coming first. And now we're like, okay, we play for the 8 because 8 will get you the finals. And then, you know, the bottom, you're just out. Like, see you later. And that's pretty much what it is from like 6 down to 17 in a Premier League season, because they're just playing, you know, they're in the middle. You don't really have any consequence lower, and you don't really get the reward higher. So we just don't have it. But the A League's the same. You know, the A League, you can win the minor, you know, whoop-de-doo. That's cool.
Yeah,
You're going into a final series, and it's like, I just feel like there has to be more to it. Like, there has to be
I have a
more
bit of a
to...
thought on that. I'd just like to know what your guys' thoughts are on this, if you wouldn't mind, Jesse. Sorry, I don't mean to
Yeah,
cut
of
you
course,
off.
man. Go for it.
I'd-
Yeah.
All right.
Pub talk.
What
in
if
the pub.
basically what if basically the idea is of finishing higher on the ladder? Let's pretend like 9th is the cutoff. Or sorry, 8th is obviously the top 8. Then you have from 17th to 9th. And what if basically, let's say you come 9th. Actually, sorry, I want to say, let's say that the cutoff becomes 9, not 8 anymore. So like there's the top 9. Then there's going to be a wild card. But the way the wild card basically works would be if you came 10th, right, you get 7 entries into like a ticket, like some sort of randomizer or whatever it ends up being. Then like less that no, but then less and less and less as the lower you finish on the ladder. And then basically that's your chances of actually being able to play finals, like as a wild card kind of system.
Corruption. It just
So is
screams
it literally
corruption.
like out of a hat?
Doesn't it? It's the one thing that they all whinge about in the NBA, right? Is how when they do the draft lottery, right, and they're picking out the balls, they actually do it behind closed doors, so they don't actually do it in the public.
Yeah.
They do it behind closed doors and then come out and go, the team who got 5th is blah blah blah. The team who got, what a jet, yeah.
You could just not do that. Like for the World Cup,
I don't like that lottery thing.
You can almost make
the
that
thought
idea
pattern though, Jake. I like the thought pattern, boy.
Like you're almost there for it.
Yeah, so the World Cup, they did it in front of everyone. Like they did it like on TV for everyone to see. And as long as you did that, it wouldn't matter. Like that should be fine.
You can still do the wild card thing, but I just feel like going to a lottery isn't it. I feel like if you're going to do that, let them play. Let him play off. Like let 9th play 11th, or let these guys battle it out as like a second tier comp to make yourself get to finals. Like you got another shot, and that way you can get last place. You know, getting this random chance of, you know, good fortune on a couple of good games where they can get themselves into the 8. Yeah, by coming last, like that would be.
That's what happens in the NBA now. The NBA have done the play-in tournament, so they've got the teams that came 10th and 9th will play a game, and the team that came 7th and 8th will play a game. If the 7th and 8th lose, they play the winner of the 9th and 10th, and then that's how they and that would then be the team that gets the 8th seed. So then goes and plays the first seed. So they have this play-in tournament. So the AFL just have done that too the last few years as well, where they've got this play-in tournament. They play an extra game and off they go.
It would be a good idea.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't mind that, because then as soon as like if you're not in the 8, all these other guys, you're like, bye-bye.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
See you next year. You know what I mean?
And what it's done is it extended it now to 2 more teams for a position, which then if you're 11th, 12th and 13th and you're only 1 or 2 games away for the last part of the year, you're fighting your ass off to try and get it because you want to play in the finals, right?
Yeah. So you're not out by 8.
That's right.
You still got a shot.
And that's right. And see, the NBA, they monetize all the teams that make finals. So they will give the club a lot of money each seed, and it ranks and it keeps going up as they go further and further. I think the AFL do the same thing, right? They pay, there's a bit of money. Don't quote me on the AFL one, but I'm pretty sure it is that they actually play. If you, whatever the team that is, there's an amount that was given to the losing team at the first round. And then if they make it to the next, there's another one given to the losing team. You need to then monetize that, and that's another way to make that a bigger significant impact to get that middle tier to be playing off.
Yeah, there's so much emphasis on finals. Like it's surprising they haven't really considered making a playoff into the finals. Like this is the whole point of it. Like you get to here, and then all the people meant to jump up and down about it. Give more chance. Like give more games out. Like I would like to see that genuinely. I think it would be very easy to do too. I don't think they'd have to do anything different except just open the doors for it.
I think everyone would like it.
Just give everyone a week off too. That's how you do it. You just need to extend the season in terms of a week off.
If you went down that metric, in my opinion, you'd have the top 4 get rewarded by going instantly to finals. I actually think that's all you need, because I don't
instead
know
of
if
two.
necessarily and then you go 2 more spots or something after that, and you have the next 4 or the next 6 sort of in a way you work out how they do it. Probably the next 4, and they just sort of play off into the next spot the week after, and then it becomes a top 6 straight away. Because I just think there's too many times where, like, you see 7th and 8th, for instance, in our current model, are literally just making up numbers. Like the Knights, no disrespect to the Knights this year and things like that, but that has never ever seemed on anyone's radar to be doing anything whatsoever. So if you made it sort of their knockout football in a week beforehand, and sort of a way they go, I don't know, we're spitballing here and things like that, and just to make a bit more excitement. But then we sort of turn into the expansion side of things and expanding the competition, and that's obviously bound to happen over the next couple of years. What number they get to, we don't know, but this is the first question I'm going to pose to you guys is, what's the ideal number that we would like to see this competition get to in terms of teams? Don't tell me your teams yet. We will get to that. But just what's your number that comes straight to your head? You go, I think this should be a 20-team competition, for instance. I'll say 20. I'll go off and say 20.
22.
Jesse?
I reckon anything
Ooh.
even. Anything even. Just give me an even number of teams. 18,
Yeah.
20. I
No
think
more
18
buys.
to 20 would be fine. It just baffles me that they're still just like, we'll just throw an odd number of teams in with buys every week. It's like, it just seems poor management. 18, if they're going to complain about load management, the works and everything else and this and that, but 20 would be good. 20 is nice. It's a round number. It's good.
Jake, did you say 22?
I did.
It's huge. Too many.
I want to come back to you and ask you what teams you think are going to come into this competition. But can you quickly give us like an explanation? 22?
I didn't really have an explanation. I just think, more teams, more different games where you're seeing different teams versus. It's just more interesting to me.
How would you do the draw? Because if you were to split it, you'd end up having buys again, and you don't want the buys.
It's not my job, mate. I don't know.
Peter, you're listening, Mr. Valandis, and he's freaked up going, oh, Jake's got a decent idea, and then you've stuffed yourself.
That is not my job.
Yeah. Look, I've got no idea. I just think it would be. I just think, like I said, more teams require more games against different opponents, and I just think that's interesting because you're seeing different people versus each other, and I just think that's. Instead of seeing more double ups, I was just going to say, instead of seeing more double ups, if you extended the amount of teams and then still everyone played each other once, and then there's a few extras, but I don't know.
Trav just needs a drink before he answers his answer.
Here we go. He's getting ready.
What's
16.
your number, Trav?
Oof.
16.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go backwards.
Go backwards one team.
I've got to ask you, what team would you get rid of?
Oh, the team that's been the worst the last few years.
Oof.
There's your relegation. Keep
There
it
it is.
16 and just relegate the last.
So you're getting rid of the Broncos?
Yeah. Well, they were in a premiership contender 2 years ago, so probably not. But no, I actually think the 17 teams is too many. I don't think the talent's there enough to have a national to be that national competition as it is. As the way the NRL is set up, I think too many things need to change for the way the NRL is, for the amount of talent that there is. And let's be fair, I like the NRL. I don't like it. I love it. But it's really only competitively properly played in 2 major states and New Zealand and the islands, right? So I don't think there's enough talent around to be putting too many out there, and I think it's already starting to water down the competition as it is. And I've got a problem with teams. Every year, right? Let's go through every year. Joel, you'll be able to reel this off because you've got a weird brain. You'll know who's finished last, and that last team for the last 10 years. How bad were they every single time?
Oh, they were bad.
Oh, freaking bad, right?
They were standouts to be pretty horrible, to be honest with you. So,
which to me tells you that there's too many teams, not enough players, not enough talent, not enough money to manage in terms of coaching, physios, all sorts of stuff to manage leagues and manage these clubs properly. So I would drop it down to 16.
I don't think it's reasonable to expect 16 teams to be potentially winning a comp. Like there are better. Like
Yeah.
the way that you're putting it is like, okay, the quality's not there. The quality's not there at the moment anyway. To be fair,
Nope.
let alone we're putting 18 to 20 to 22 teams in. My God, but you can't also go in the same breath and say these 16 teams. If we do go back one, these 16 teams, everyone has a good chance to win this competition because they don't.
It was never like that. It was never like that.
It can't be. But all you're going to end up doing by having 18, 19, 20, 21, or 22 bloody teams is making that even worse. Now you've got 21 teams that are going to be atrocious. Like, well, not a 21, but now you've got 10 teams that are going to be horrible. Like, yeah, I'm pretty passionate about this. Actually, I really think that 16. I think 17 is too many already.
Well, let's go then. I think
there was. Yeah.
I actually think it needs to be more. I think we do have enough talent in the game to go more.
So why do West Tigers suck? Why was Paris so bad this year? Why has the Bunnies turned out to be so bad?
Not to do with the players.
It's been bad management. It's been bad club management by the West Tigers for some time.
It's many things, but it's the fact that the players just aren't that good enough either.
Well, why have the Storm signed 2 West Tigers players over the last 2 years then, if their players are so shocking?
Say that
it's got nothing to do
with Papali'i, you know what I mean? Like their players are great.
The top teams are picking the West Tigers apart.
Yeah, there was a period in the last couple of years where I was like, bloody hell, the Tigers actually have some players at the moment. And they still come last. They still come last. It didn't make a difference to them. And that's why this season, I'm like, okay, now they got LOI. They've got all these guys. There's a chance that they still come last.
They've got half a team that are pretty good and half a team that aren't.
Yeah, and then once a year they get two of their best players taken from players like teams like the Storm
because they suck.
Even if
because the players don't want to play for them because they're no good, so they leave.
Even if you look specifically at the Storm and Tigers, there's Adokar, Pappenhausen. Who got taken this year? What's his name? Utok Manu. Who else am I talking here? There's more than that.
Well, I don't know. What are you trying to actually say?
Yeah, thank you, Blore.
I don't think it's a playing group. I don't think it's the players we lack. I think we've got in abundance players that are ready to make the NRL, like we've seen at the Dolphins this year. Trey Fuller just hit the ground running, and he's been in the system now for a while. Keeney for the Titans, like they're in abundance now of fullbacks galore. There is a lot of talent. I think what we're screaming for is coaches. Because I think what it's shown, and we look at a number of the teams in the last few years who have struggled, it comes down to poor coaching, in my opinion, and we lack a lot of good club management. We seem to be in this age at the moment where we're going down the business route of, okay, they've got banking qualities and stuff like that. They can run the club. It's all good. No, we need football people in these positions. That's why when I always say, whenever Wayne gives it up, he will probably coach till he dies. We all know that. But like someone like Craig and stuff, we need to make sure we keep them in the game. And then next step after coaching is club management because they know it. They know systems. They need to teach these people systems and have the right people moving forward. The West Tigers, they've been horrible for 10 years now when it comes to club management. Horrible. They've had some good players on their roster, but down to poor coaching because they continue to change their coach every 2 years, which doesn't help. They've become the laughing stock. They've still got an average coach, in my opinion. But
that goes hand in hand, right? Like but that goes hand in hand. Like again, it's the same point as what I'm saying. It's not just the players, it's the coaches, it's the training staff, it's all of these things that go. And when you have more teams, you need to have more of these things, right? You're saying it's the coaches. We don't have that. We've had heaps of conversations, Joel, around how bad our coaches are. I mean, we had a conversation 2 weeks ago around who's going to be the new New South Wales Blues coach, and everyone sat there. It's like stunned mullets going, who's going to be? Because we don't have anybody. There's no one any good. But let's have more teams in the competition and get some shit coaches out there so we can continue the cycle of coaching these good players to be shit. Just doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense.
That's tough because I wouldn't say that we have bad coaches. I'd say we have unproven coaches. Like you look at, and I'm gonna say it obviously early. We haven't seen him do anything yet because the season hasn't started. But we have Jason Riles coming across who sat there for years under Bellamy, thinking Bellamy was going to go, and sat there and waited. But he, seems like he's perfectly capable of coaching. Again, can't comment because he hasn't done it yet. But there's heaps of assistant coaches that kind of wait for that shot with the teams that are currently there. But if an expansion opportunity popped up, you don't think that they'd be the first to kind of put their hand up and try and get across potentially?
Doesn't mean they're going to be good though.
Well, you never know though. They're unproven, and that's just
Exactly.
you know that it's almost impossible to. Well, it's impossible to know whether or not it's
I think I think you're playing very much in the what might happen field instead of just going, well, let's just not. We don't have the coaches and we don't have these things. So why do we need to continue to have and make opportunities for it? It's this experimental piece that we've got to keep going.
You can only have
because we've got assistant coaches, right?
You're not going to be able to progress though.
You can only have 7.
How are you not progressing with 16 teams?
You keep it 16, keep it locked in. Where are you going to find the opportunity to get these other people to come up and actually make it better?
Because coaches aren't going to constantly. Well, as Joel's already said, we don't have enough coaches to field good 16 teams. So, coaches are going to retire. Coaches are going to do other jobs. Coaches are going to take other jobs. Other opportunities come up. Coaches are not going to do very good and get sacked. So that's the next man up. Like it's 16 more than enough.
That just has to happen. There has to be teams that do poorly, and there has to be teams that do well. In every sport there is, you can't win the comp and lose the comp at the same time.
And that's how you get all these other guys with opportunities to come through as the next coach.
So you've had 3 years. Bellamy's gone. Bennett's gone. Okay, you know what I mean.
Trent Robinson might have gone.
Robinson, who might be gone by then? Okay, understandable.
What you're saying is if we have 20 teams, there's 5 other clubs or 3 other clubs with more opportunity, so that we've developed good coaches. We can't even do it with 17 teams.
The other thing I want to say,
and they're all bad. It's a pretty even playing field. Somebody has to stand out.
The other thing I want to say on the coaching front is there's also been a number of times we can look back on where a coach has been labelled a bad coach as such. But I actually think it's more to do with the club side of things as well and the management. And we've heard stories where clubs will override the head coach in terms of selections and the drama all there. So there's a number of coaches where I feel like a different scene could see them become the coach that a lot of us at that time thought they could have been. I think the New South Wales job is something completely different because we've now seen with Madge and we've seen now with Billy with Queensland, it's a certain type of person that needs to go in there. It's a short job. You really ride home in terms of not necessarily it's a coach as such, but it's more of a game management. It's more of a man manager. You need to really build up and time those players. They all can play. Everyone at that scene can play. You need someone who can be in there, a respectable figure where the players know, oh, I'm getting a bit excited here. And the coach comes over and goes, mate, go to your room and just relax and go calm down. The game's not for another 3 days. Go to the golf course, do something. Like, I think that's more of that sort of a coach needs to be. That it's not about necessarily a good coach because, look, Madge got sacked from the Tigers a year before he got the Blues job and has become the Blues savior in a way, and everyone's out there upset that he's gone now. So I don't think it's necessarily we've got all these bad coaches not getting jobs at the moment. I think we've still got a couple of good coaches out there that don't have jobs as such. It may just not have been there. Like, for instance, Jeff Tuvey, you've heard him talk about the game. He knows the game. But at the time with Manly and that club and the way things were going there, it just didn't work. That's not to say that if he ended up popping up as the Bears coach for Perth, it wouldn't work. It might work. We don't know. Like Brad Arthur, for instance, he's off at the Super League. He's waiting for another job to come. He will quickly come on. And no one's saying he can't coach. He can coach to a certain degree. I always say I don't know if he can get a team to win the grand final, which is obviously the goal for any team out there. But for teams starting out who want to establish their identity, they would welcome someone like Brad Arthur along to go, come and be our coach for the next 5 years, build up our identity, get us to a squad where we think we can go somewhere. Thank you for everything. Let's go again. Like, I just think, and we go back to sort of the point with the players, like Trav, the Storm, for instance, they've literally got at the moment, in my opinion, a reserve grade player who is easily good enough to play probably in 16 other teams at the moment who can't get a run. So for mine, there is clearly enough talent at the moment to have at least one more team. If not at a stretch, you can go to 3. Sua Falongo would be a top fullback at pretty much most clubs at the moment, hands down. Pezzett would walk into most halves, I feel like, at the moment. You've got Wishart, who would be a top 5 hooker in the game at the moment, and he's a 14 for you guys. Like, there is players out there who would be screaming for this week in, week out starting role, 1 to 13, and they're just stuck behind players at certain teams. Like you look at Penrith, for instance, look at the times where Cleary's been out and yet LOI goes to half, but they're 5'8". If it's Schneider, he doesn't put a foot wrong. He's another one that's screaming for a number 7 spot for 2-3 years. Like there is enough quality, in my opinion, to have some good teams out there whenever we do expand and however we expand too.
I agree.
Still going to have terrible teams at the bottom of the ladder.
You have to.
I'm trying to. No, you don't have to though. Why do we accept that? We have to. Why do we accept that? Why is that an acceptable thing?
There has to be a team that comes last. At some point,
there has to be a team, but they don't have to be as bad as the bloody Wade West Tigers and Parramatta were this year, and what Bunnies produced and stuff like that. Come on, I've heard you. I'm only repeating your words.
Yeah,
there has to be someone on the bottom of the ladder. Absolutely, I'm not stopping that. That will always happen, but they don't have to be that bad. They don't have to be as bad as they have been over the course of the last decade.
Look, we're talking about the Tigers more specifically. I get that we're talking about the Tigers.
About anyone that's finished in the bottom few teams of the last decade and beyond.
But I don't understand. Like you say, like they have to. The Tigers, I'm talking specifically right now, are a bit of an outlier. They're very fitting to what you're trying to say. The Tigers have been terrible, and I get that. But their management only just recently changed over, and it looks like they're actually starting to make good decisions around like their roster. Like they haven't had, and you're right, they haven't had a good roster, but they weren't attracting the talent. But there is talent in the game for them. Like they now have done that this year, and you'll see that I think that you'll see that they'll improve. So I don't know. I just think that they weren't an attractive place to go to, maybe because of facilities and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that can't change over the next few years. Like you're saying, you need to reduce right now, and we're talking about the state right now. But Joel never gave us a time limit. He said, "What would you like to see it get to in the future?" My overall, I think that it could get like bigger, and I think that expansions should happen over time, slowly, very slowly, of course. But I think the goal would be, you're higher than 20 teams eventually, because the only thing that's going to happen is when you start developing those players in those teams when they're forced to play in the NRL, is they're going to get better. They're either going to get better, they're either sink or swim. And you know what? You'll find more people will sink. More people will swim. More people will sink.
Yeah, I feel like to Joel's point before too, with how many players of quality that we have, the reason why these better teams are better is because they have the depth of those players. You can't just give them all away. Like the Storm, you just rattled off 3 or 4 of the Storm players. Like that's why they killed it this year, was because they had those guys to rely on. And a lot of it comes to the system of the club, just how they're developed and their training and everything that comes with it. I can't imagine that you're going to get those 3 or 4 players, throw them into a bottom feeder club, or just somewhere at the very bottom of the table and have them excel as well as they have done this year if they weren't sitting behind players like Munster and Pappenhausen and all this sort of stuff. Like the reason why they're so good is because of where they are. Not because they're just good on their own. So
you're definitely right. But imagine an expansion club. They're probably going to send, because they're going to have heaps of money with no one, like with whoever they want to send it on. They might imagine you being like that kid and going, a club coming up to you and going, you could be the face of this club, and we'll give you heaps of money to come across over here and like do that. I think that they would go across, and that's where your talent moves from there. Like you're not going to get necessarily your best cream of the crop straight away.
You're still going to have talent at clubs. Like look at Lockie Galvin this year. I mean, like the Tigers had him. Like he was there. They had this quality, and he is quality. Like so, you will still get quality players at lesser clubs. It's not going to stop it, but I feel like the volume obviously hurts, and the desire to play for a better club is always there. And that's the hard thing, especially with those lower table clubs, is that like they will want to leave. They just want to. They want to play for the better club. They want to win.
Yeah.
So
and the expansion stuff isn't just the playing side of things either. When we talk expansion, it's about growing the game as a whole. And I think it's because it is a business. You want to continue to expand your business. That's just natural. And if the game wasn't wanting to do that, they need to give it away. There needs to be new management in place. Going back to 16 really, I guess, strangles in a way growing the game and growing it out to other regions, because you've already got teams whinging that they take too many home games away. You want to start having a team in those areas. Like they consistently talk about WA. You want to have a team out there eventually. You want to have a second team in New Zealand. You don't want to keep having teams go out there and taking one of their home games away, losing income for their home teams and home fans, things like that. You want to continue to expand this game that we've got. I think the game's the strongest it's ever been. And the thing is, a lot of people forget about when we talk about expansion, whether it's teams and players and the like. We're recently just getting back to normal in a way from COVID as well. COVID has depleted so many terms of streams of players and getting different depth into certain positions. I think you go back and talk to a lot of people around that time in clubs and you realize just how much it has hurt the game as a whole. And we're only just getting back now to where we were before COVID struck. So I think we're in a great position. I think we need to expand. It's vital to expand, in my opinion, and take advantage of these places like New Zealand where the game is flying. I honestly do believe we have a serious possibility of being the number one code over there, which if you asked me 10 years ago, I would have laughed you out of the room. There would have been no way at all I thought that. But by the sound and speaking to a couple of Kiwis not over there, rugby league is absolutely flying over there. Whatever it is, if it's a Warriors game, if it's another game, if it's an international that gets played over there, absolutely loving it. And I just think we've got to take advantage of it.
I'm prepared to be roasted for this opinion because I know I will be. But I actually would like to see expansion teams, if we can, and it doesn't have to be anytime soon, but I'd like to see expansion teams go into the Northern Territory, South Australia and Tasmania. I know, I'm prepared. I'm prepared to cop it. I really am. But this is the way I see it, right? If we can get those teams in there, even if it's just one per state to start off with, right? Just to start off, you have, I know currently the sport isn't big there, right? But we call it the National Rugby League and we're a national sport, but it isn't a sport that is played or watched, in those states. To start off with, we're talking about not having any talent, right? You start by having a team there, okay? And even if you have to draw some talent across, that can help start to begin the pathways of juniors and then playing those sports in those areas to start to develop those younger talents coming through in those areas. And it's only going to eventually expand into having those players coming from those areas themselves. So eventually, and I know that'll be well down the track from now, but I'm talking about the future of the game. That's where that comes to. Like, that's where you have to have those development areas coming from. I'm aware that you're not a fan of this, Joel. I can see it. I can see the smirking. All right. I'm fully okay with that. I don't care.
I'm waiting for Trav's response.
No, look, I'm happy to cop it, like I said, but this is the way I see it is I think that, first of all, you're going to have, for the people who do decide to sort of start to follow it or whatever, you're going to have an entire state behind you. Like, if the expansion ends up going to Perth, like we're all kind of assuming it will, they're going to have heaps of people behind them. Like, they're going to have a whole state backing them to try and win games kind of thing. And eventually that's going to, like I said, expand into their juniors. So when I was younger, I actually went and played at South Australia for like an exhibition thing to try and, as like an idea to try and get the game going. And back then, when I went and played over there, we flogged the teams that we versed because they had no idea what they were doing because it just wasn't popular and that sort of thing. And I think that having a team for them to be able to watch and get behind then sort of starts to build that idea of like, oh, wow, our state can be part of this whole thing as well. But go on, have at me. I'm ready.
Who wants first dig?
Go on, Trav. You look ready. Oh, no, go, Jesse. Go, Jesse.
Oh, I just don't think there's enough there for it. Like, you talk about the lack of quality. There's a lack of interest in these states. That's the problem. They don't care. They don't like it. It's the reason why they haven't put their hand up to get a team is because they don't want to. You'd be forcing like, it's like saying, cool, like, let's just all watch water polo because there's a competition of water polo that's come into the area and we have to get involved. It's like, they don't want to. They have their sports. They have the AFL. Northern Territory, I don't know really what they've got up there, but they're just, I don't know. I can't speak for a whole state. That's the problem. Like, there would definitely be people interested in it, but I think there's not enough.
How do you know that? Have you taken a poll? Have you taken a poll? How do you know?
Have you?
Well, exactly.
To prove your point?
Yeah.
But my point is, I think it.
Surely
my point is, I hope it could work. I don't think it won't. My point is, I hope that's what I'd like to see. That's all we're talking about here.
If they come through now, it would be a very slow burn, and you would be talking about the quality of the game taking a hit. There's the bottom.
I'm talking about a slow burn
for the next 10 years.
I'm talking real slow. Like, I'm not talking about you just chucking 3 teams, brand new teams to go right now. I'm talking like 5 years, 10 years. I don't care how long in the future, but it needs to be that thing that, and I think it's going to start. I think it's going to start in Western Australia. I think it's going to start there, and that's what's going to kick this off. And I think it's going to happen eventually. One day, we'll look back at it.
You can't
Perth isn't a gamble. Perth's
that?
not a gamble. Perth's not a gamble. Perth's almost guaranteed to
It shouldn't be a
succeed, so.
gamble.
The other look, I'm trying. I want to be nice to you, but it's pub chat, so I'm just going to go
No,
for
I'm
it now.
ready. Have it,
Northern
go on.
Territory will not succeed. First of all, the conditions up there for majority of the year, you just cannot expect a squad of 30 to be up there and train, especially in the preseason. It would be
All
almost
year,
murderous. You'd be borderline murdering players. Like it'd just be ridiculous. Secondly, it's just unfortunately the economic side of things and stuff. I don't think it would work there at all, and they don't have the infrastructure behind them to support that sort of team. Now, the game is going gangbusters at the moment, but what you don't want to do is start putting teams in like this where the game's going to have to put so much money in, where the money they're making now, it's almost getting destroyed. They're basically it's just going out it's going in the front door, out the back door, basically the same day. You want to start taking a bit of that money and using it in the regions that need it, like out the western of Queensland, New South Wales, that sort of stuff. Help the juniors that are coming into our game. Tasmania, shocking idea. They've already got an AFL thing coming, and they've got the jack jumpers or something at the moment, whatever. I don't follow it, so I don't know, but it's just too many codes for this small little island that they would not go. And the thing with Tasmania,
they couldn't attract talent from somewhere else.
But who's going to go down there to start with? Again, a squad of 30 that wants to go down to Tassie, that you need to have fans that show up to the games where Tasmania and South Australia are passionate AFL people. They're just blind. Their blinkers are on. They don't talk to them about NRL because, trust me, I've been to South Australia a couple of times in the last 12 months and tried to. They don't want a bar of it. Most of the time, they'll either go, "What's that?" out of it being just a bit of a smart ass, or they'll try and have a go at you. So, Jake's had enough. But
his roasting.
I can't see it working, Trav.
It can't. You're right. We're a big country that's a little country at the same time. We've only got 25 million people here. Like, there's only so much the economic state can do. There's only so much our people can do. Like, it just can't happen. And each state is different. You completely and utterly agree entirely about what you said about the Northern Territory. And then the only other town that you could do it is Alice Springs, and you're not going to do that there. So Northern Territory's out. How you can't put it in South Australia, as you said. The lifeblood of South Australia is AFL, and it has been for 100 years. And there's 2 AFL clubs, and there's an NBL club there. You know, there's two major codes in Australia that are managing that. Plus, obviously, I think South Australia's also got what are they? The soccer league? What do we call it? I don't watch soccer, so A-League. So there's a South Australian team there too?
No, they don't.
Oh no, Adelaide, they do. Yeah, Adelaide United.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've already got 4 major teams in that. Tasmania, you just can't do it. It's hard enough already for the AFL to go in and do it with what with how they're managing that. And they're about to open up that team. And there's a lot of people who are really, really on the fence about the AFL opening up this a team in Tassie. I hope it goes all right. I actually think the AFL needs to have one more team just to max that out. But and Tassie's a good spot. But again, it's an AFL state. You know, New South Wales is NRL, right? It's rugby league, it's all the codes. It's, you know, so there's nothing wrong with states preferring that. It happens everywhere in the world, like specific states and things. Like in America, Texas is all football, and there's a couple of NBA teams there, but it's all football, all American football. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the only state that you could do in Australia that would probably facilitate another team is WA. And I think there's a lot of work that's got to go into that. And to have Jake's point of, you know, he wants to make it a national competition, and by putting a club there, then you've got your grassroots. But really, the grassroots, that's going to be 20 years. Well, that'll be 18 years. So that you're not going to see the expanses of that for at least 18 years, because you need to invest in the kids and all that sort of stuff. So, I like his point, and I get what he's trying to say in terms of, and so I'll give him a positive hit note on this, is that, you know, one of the things that women's sport has done well is by just investing in it and putting it in place, and therefore it grows through it, which is what he's trying to say would happen with the NRL. Putting it in, having our teams invest in it, and it grows it, and that's how it grows. But you can't do that in this men's sport context. It just won't work.
Yeah, it's already been established, really, hasn't it? Like the women's game hadn't been at the time. That's why it picked up so well. But I reckon they probably do a better chance in putting a second New Zealand team than it is in putting anything in those other states, to be honest. They're kind of ready for it.
Let's end with, at the moment, what's going on in the media. It feels like 20 is going to be the number that the game does end on by about 2030, I think the rumors are. So it feels like the next team is about 2027. And I think they're talking, then there'll be two others after that, I think 29 and 30 or something like that. So let's just say let's fast forward to 2030 and where all three teams are in the competition. What are our three choices for the teams that we would like to see come into the competition? So to give you guys a little bit of thinking time, I'll go first. So I think Perth has to be one. I'd link it with the Bears. I know there's been a little bit of drama there behind the scenes, but I'll just make that relationship happen because I think it's vital to Trav's point for the Perth franchise to not have probably juniors for a while there. They need to make sure they're heavily linked to a Sydney club. The Bears obviously hold a very special place to a lot of rugby league fans' hearts still, and they've got that nursery sort of down pat at the moment. It's already sort of a fast-forward process, so that's one. I'd have the New Zealand second team at the moment. It's sort of like that South Island Kia, which is sort of up there and been pretty active on social media a few times. I've tagged the page and stuff. So that sort of a team obviously looks to me likely, and I think just to keep going on that New Zealand momentum, we have to. Now, the last one for me is interesting because obviously PNG is almost a guarantee to happen. And obviously we know why. There's a lot of government stuff to it. How passionate, and there's a lot of PNG fans on the page. Absolutely love it. Love you for it. And I love how passionate you are. I just don't think it'll work, to be honest with you. I just do not see this working. Again, back to having players travel up to Northern Territory and stuff in terms of their families and things like that. I just don't think that you can have people in PNG. And if they don't always do all the games in PNG, like you're already splitting things up, there's no actual identity there. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'll just go like a Central Queensland sort of team. I'll just put another team sort of around like the Ipswich area and stuff like that and just have that sort of whole Brisbane sort of area covered because it's rugby league at Heartland. It would work. For mine, living up here, I know the Dolphins are new still, but I feel like there is still room for another Brisbane team. There is still room for it. So that's where I would go. And that means for me personally, and I know it's not going to happen, I would be skipping PNG at this stage. Trav, I'll go you first.
Yeah, I am not a fan at all, one iota, of the Papua New Guinea thing. And from what my research and listening to a few other content creators, the talk of the PNG team is that it's going to be a compound, right? So they're going to live in a compound and the families are all together, the school there. So you're not even ingrained in the community, really. You're living behind big walls and you're putting in big walls for protection. That to me just doesn't seem right. And I'll be frank, I've been to Papua New Guinea a couple of times. I love that place. I love it. Love holidaying there. The people there are beautiful. Islander people are beautiful. The culture there is beautiful. But if I had a son and my son was just offered a contract to go and play for Papua New Guinea, I'd say hell no. Like it's just not in me. Like I'm not a fan of that at all. I think you'd get players that'd go there. Look, I mean, there's no income tax, so dollars are tax free and things. So, but what you'd end up doing is it'd be like the population trying to be miners, right? Go and be a miner for a couple of years, make a crap load of money, and come back and leave. Right, it'll just be the same thing. The rotation of the club, as if you wouldn't get that many players that would want to stay there for a long period of time. Not to mention, too, if you're not going to do it in Northern Territory, you're sure as hell not going to do it over there for the weather-wise. Like it's even hotter. The conditions there are even hotter. So yeah, it just none of that makes sense to me, and so I don't like it. So that's my negativity on that. Yeah, look, I said very clearly what my thoughts are on expansion teams, but clearly I know that it's going to expand. It was just my opinion on what I think we should have. I think Perth is a no-brainer. I think Perth can manage it. I think Perth has the facilities and it has the infrastructure ready to go and the space to build that sort of stuff. So I think that's a I think that's a no-brainer. I do agree with you. Perth needs to have an affiliate from New South Wales. I think that has to go with them. They can't just open up a club and say off they go. They've got to have a fan base go with them. And the Bears fan base is immense. So if you've got to pick anyone, that would to me is the no-brainer. As a Storm fan, I hate it, as I said already, but that to me is it. I actually, my thoughts are I wouldn't do just yet. I'm not super. I would wait on that third team in terms of whether I would put that in New Zealand. But my two thoughts on where I would go is the western region of Brisbane. So that would be Ipswich and things. So I would go the western region, and I would go central Queensland and drop it into like a Mackay, Rockhampton area. I think like it works in Townsville. There's a few 150 odd thousand people up there. Like I get it. It works there, but there's 120 odd thousand in the greater area of central Queensland that I think would absolutely froth at the mouth of having a club. And I think would be the weather is can be hot, but it's not near as hot as it is up in Townsville. So yeah, I think central Queensland would be a really nice spot. Plus all that there's a good airport there. There's all that sort of infrastructure already that's easy for travel.
Yeah.
So
Jesse, what are your three?
Yeah, well, it's broken record stuff, really. It's the Perth team, which has been spoken about. I don't like the PNG idea. I don't think it's going to get... It shouldn't even have traction, to be fair. Like, it just seems like it has no legs to stand on. So, I don't know. You hear a lot about it, but I think it's more just money than anything else. But another New Zealand team, obviously, would be good. I feel like they could do with it too. And then the same thing, it's like, okay, there's one New Zealand team. There's one Melbourne team. Like, I know they're an AFL place, but... open it up. I reckon chuck another one down there. Like there's a lot of talent. Obviously, there's a lot of places in Queensland. It's freaking massive. And there's a lot that could do with a lot more because they are so passionate about it up there too. So, you can take it for what it is. So I just think, even with Victoria as a state, like there's surely got to be more than just the Storm. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not from there really. So
I do know
so.
what you mean, but there's not you wouldn't. You can't have another team in the NRL in Melbourne. It just wouldn't happen. Where would you have your facilities for it?
Everything's too close. Really,
it is. Yeah, you'd have to if you were to do it. You'd have to go maybe to a Geelong area or go to the western suburbs and do something out the Dandenong areas, that sort of thing. But there's not enough. There's just not enough. I don't think there's enough supporter fans. Like the Storm have the fans because it's the one team amongst 15 AFL clubs plus 2 NBL clubs plus the tennis and all the other things that happen. And the 2 Melbourne soccer teams. Like it works because there's only one. I just don't foresee a second Melbourne team lasting.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's why I was thinking even still, I'm like, I just don't know if it would really take off either, considering how Melbourne is with their sport. But yeah, I'd imagine there's a lot of places up in Queensland that could do with another side, especially north.
Yeah. That's it, guys. That's all we've got time for. I think we've done a good one here. So the draw and the expansion side of things got into some nice debates. Unfortunately, Jake got roasted too hard and left us late on there, but hopefully we have him back to roast again next week. So he had a few audio and video issues. Again, if you do like this sort of stuff, you want to hear more of it, especially at the moment while there's not much happening, you just want to sit back and chat with a bit of league news, make sure you hit that like button, add a few comments, whether it's a YouTuber, and I think you can do it via podcast, wherever you listen to it now as well, especially Spotify, things opened up. So drop some comments, let us know your thoughts. If there's a topic you would like to see us attack over the next couple of weeks, let us know. Always open to perhaps moving and shifting what we're doing. If there's something that we've perhaps forgotten about that you are just sitting there going, I'd love to hear the boys talk about this a little bit more. So, again, it's the off season, trying to have a bit of fun, have a bit of that pub chat, have a drink or two, chat some footy that we all love. And, go from there. We're not here to hopefully land on the moon, but just having a bit of a yarn. And again, if Landis wants to just send through a couple of checks to us and fly us up to Sydney and talk about this a bit more, happy to do so. But thank you for listening, everyone. To all the boys, Jake, Jesse, and Trav, thanks for jumping on once again. And We will see you midweek for our midweek, basically, news cycle potty. Thank you.